Listen, I had a cousin.
Look, Eddie, you're gonna get it, and you're gonna get it right now.
Hello, boys.
Nowadays, years after the Cleavers first appeared on screen, a handful of the original cast still share their stories with the world. Jerry Mathers, easily recognized as Beaver himself, remains a living link to the show's long-ago afternoons, carrying years of memories from the set and the close family that formed behind the camera. Tony Dow, who played Wally, helped define what it meant to be the ideal older brother for millions, and his journey after the show, through challenges and new creative ventures, resonates deeply with dedicated fans. Alongside the brothers, Ken Osmond left a lasting impression as the unforgettable Eddie Haskell, the sly friend whose antics became legendary. His unique charm carried on long after the series ended, with public appearances and interviews that sparked nostalgia. Interest in these actors' lives beyond Mayfield has only grown, as older viewers watch them reflect on the friendships that endured for decades and the unexpected twists in their careers. Many cherish stories about the actors' personal adventures, work in entertainment, and pride in keeping the legacy of an American classic alive through reunions, books, and interviews. Even today, their names continue to pop up in conversations about enduring television and the impact it had on childhoods everywhere.
100 bottles of this stuff in a week.
Could you do it now, Dad?
Huh?
Although Leave It to Beaver introduced viewers to a cast of memorable young characters, Rusty Stevens stood out for his portrayal of Larry Mondello, the mischievous and ever-hungry friend of Beaver. Stevens played Larry in 68 episodes, making many people remember the dynamic between Beaver and Larry as they navigated childhood adventures together. Larry brought comic relief to the show, his chattiness and troublemaking nature adding a warm, lighthearted touch. Stevens worked on Leave It to Beaver from 1957 until 1960. After his family moved from Burbank, California, to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, his run on the show ended rather suddenly, leaving many fans wondering about his absence and the character's disappearance. Larry Mondello's playful personality left a lasting impression on audiences, even though his time on the series was relatively brief compared to some of the other child actors. Years later, in 1983, Stevens returned once more to the familiar character for the television reunion movie Still the Beaver, bringing a sense of nostalgia to longtime viewers. Other than this single appearance, Stevens completely stepped away from acting and the Hollywood spotlight. No further acting credits have been publicized, nor any major media interviews or appearances. Public records indicate that he was born in 1948, so he would be in his early 70s now. Little else is known about his current life, and he has remained out of the public eye, embracing his privacy as the years have gone on. Many viewers from the earlier era of television continue to remember him fondly as the boy who made them laugh alongside Beaver and the Cleaver family.
Hey, Wally, after supper, you eat some fly balls?
Yeah, sure, if I don't go anywhere.
Meanwhile, Barbara Billingsley, known for playing June Cleaver, once shared in an interview with TV Archive that Stevens was actually let go from the show due to his overbearing stage mother, whose behavior caused significant difficulties for the producers on set. Turning to Stephen Talbot, he found early fame as a child actor, most notably playing Beaver Cleaver's friend Gilbert Bates. His time on Leave It to Beaver in the late 50s and early 60s offered his start in television, but his career did not end with that series. After the show concluded, Talbot continued to act, taking on guest roles in notable television programs like The Twilight Zone, Perry Mason, The Lucy Show, M Squad, and The Fugitive. In 1960, he also appeared in the film Because They're Young. After finishing high school, Talbot went on to study English and film at Wesleyan University, where he became involved in anti-Vietnam War protests. This activism inspired the direction of his early filmmaking, with his first project centered around the anti-war movement. By the 1980s, his talents brought him to Code TV, San Francisco's PBS station, working as a staff reporter and producer. Over time, he made his mark producing documentaries, including two that won Peabody Awards, Broken Arrow and The Case of Dashiell Hammett. Talbot built a distinguished reputation by producing and contributing to numerous documentaries for PBS, including several for the long-running series Independent Lens. He also created many news stories for the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour. Approaching his mid-70s, Talbot continues his work as a senior producer for the Center of Investigative Reporting, ITVs, and PBS.
Oh, hi, fellas.
Hi, Mom. Hi.
Meanwhile, Tiger Fafara, born in San Francisco in 1945, had an early start in television thanks to a timely open casting call for a new family sitcom, Leave It to Beaver. Tiger didn't audition alone. His younger brother, Stanley Fafara, was with him. The show's producers saw something special in the brothers and hired both, with Tiger landing the part of Tooey Brown, a close friend of Wally Cleaver. Stanley would become familiar to viewers as Whitey, another one of Beaver's classmates. During his years on Leave It to Beaver, Tiger played Tooey as a typical kid of the time, cheerful, mischievous, and a loyal sidekick to Wally. His presence added a layer of everyday authenticity to the dynamic among Wal's friends, frequently seen joining the rest of the gang in the Cleavers' idyllic neighborhood adventures. Apart from his work on Leave It to Beaver, Tiger's acting resume stretched into other classic 1950s television series like Lassie, The Adventures of Rin Tin Tin, The Donna Reed Show, and Private Secretary, where he took on minor but memorable parts. His film experience included a supporting role in the 1955 film Good Morning, Miss Dove, showing his range as a child actor before he focused mainly on television. Tiger left Leave It to Beaver in 1960 as the show progressed, and a year later, he stepped away from acting altogether. But his connection to the Cleaver family story wasn't quite finished. Over 20 years later, in 1983, Tiger made a brief return to acting by reprising his role as Tooey in Still the Beaver, a reunion movie that brought much of the original cast back together. This appearance led to a recurring role in the new Leave It to Beaver, a follow-up reboot series that ran from 1983 until 1987. After this extended trip down memory lane, Tiger retired for good. Now in his late 70s, Tiger Fafara enjoys a quieter life, but his family's ties to show business didn't end with him. His son, Des Fafara, is well known in the heavy metal music scene as the vocalist for the bands Coal Chamber and De Wilderver.
They just look like letters.
They are letters. They're letters from Kitty Bannerman.
How come?
Meanwhile, Jerry Well made her mark as a child actress through her memorable portrayal of Judy Hensler on Leave It to Beaver. On the show, she played the sometimes nosy and often know-it-all classmate opposite the Cleaver family, creating lively classroom moments that became a regular part of the series' charm. Even before her television success, Well appeared on the big screen in The Eddie Cantor Story, adding film experience to her early resume. Years later, after Leave It to Beaver garnered enough fond nostalgia for a revival in 1983, Well stepped back into the public eye as a celebrity guest on the game show Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour, letting fans see a different side of her personality. 4 years after that, in 1987, she returned to the familiar role of Judy when the show was revived again, this time under the title The New Leave It to Beaver, giving fans a sense of continuity and a peek into how Judy had grown up. Although acting was such a key piece of her early life, Well transitioned to other pursuits as she got older. Now, at 74, she leads a different kind of life as a writer, an established realtor, working with Prudential John Arrow and Associates Realty in Studio City, California, helping others find their homes in the heart of Los Angeles.
Give him his ice cream and say nothing about it.
Is that what your parents would have done if they found out you had a crush?
Meanwhile, Veronica Cartwright is remembered by many for her varied roles across film and television, especially for her early appearances as a child actress. She took on the role of Violet Rutherford in 3 episodes of the 1957 series Leave It to Beaver, contributing a memorable presence in the show's classic suburban setting. Cartwright also returned briefly to the series several years later as the character Peggy McIntosh during a 1963 episode, showcasing her range even as a young performer. In addition to Leave It to Beaver, her career as a child actress included small roles in other popular shows from the era, such as Make Room for Daddy, Route 66, The Twilight Zone, and The 11th Hour. Her early film work saw her featured in prominent supporting parts, including in the Alfred Hitchcock-directed The Birds and The Children's Hour. Eventually, Cartwright became best known for her performances in science fiction and horror films, including the 1978 remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where she delivered a standout performance. She continued building her reputation on-screen by appearing in films such as The Right Stuff in 1983, The Witches of Eastwick in 1987, and later in projects like The Invasion in 2007, and The Town That Dreaded Sundown in 2014. Her long television career extended well into adulthood, with guest spots and recurring roles on a wide range of series including The X-Files, Judging Amy, Law & Order, 6 Feet Under, and The Closer. Even into her 70s, Cartwright remained active in the industry, with recent appearances in the 2020 romantic comedy Breaking Fast, and in a 2021 episode of the medical drama The Resident. Over her remarkable career, the three-time Primetime Emmy nominee made a strong impression as both a child star and an established actress, always finding new ways to contribute to film and television.
Worked out. I think he accepted the invitation under false pretenses.
What do you mean?
After starting his career on the adventures of Rin Tin Tin, Nathaniel Buddy Hart made a significant mark by playing Chester Anderson, one of Wally's friends, on Leave It to Beaver. This early role helped launch him into the world of television, and soon he was appearing in other notable shows such as Gunsmoke, The Twilight Zone, and Father Knows Best. While many child actors fade from the spotlight, Hart built a unique and enduring career in entertainment. Over time, he became known professionally as Buddy Joe Hooker, and made a name for himself as one of Hollywood's most sought-after stunt professionals. As a stuntman and car chase coordinator, he developed a powerful reputation, especially after choreographing action in films like To Live and Die and Lay and Jade. His skills brought him to the sets of legendary films, including The Godfather Part 3, The Outsiders, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Meet Joe Black, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. His remarkable dedication kept him active through the decades, and even at 78 years old, he still works in show business, sometimes alongside his wife Gail, who is also a stunt performer, and their twin sons. Hart's journey shows an impressive evolution from a supporting character on a beloved family series to a pivotal figure behind the scenes of major Hollywood productions, shaping high adrenaline moments that moviegoers remember for years.
No, Dad, honest, there wasn't. I'll get it.
Although Tony Dow had very little acting experience, he landed the role of Wally Cleaver, Beaver's older brother, through an open casting call. This part became the most significant and recognized role of his life, making him a familiar face in households across the country. When Leave It to Beaver ended, Tony continued acting and showed up in popular television shows such as My Three Sons, The Greatest Show on Earth, Dr. Kildare, Mr. Novick, and Never Too Young. It was after these early appearances that Tony served in the National Guard, a commitment he fulfilled from 1965 to 1958, before returning to television roles. His subsequent work included guest spots on dramas and comedies like Love American Style, Adam 12, Knight Rider, The Hardy Boys, and Emergency. Even though his acting work slowed in the 1970s, Tony found new paths by working in the construction industry and taking up studies in both filmmaking and journalism, showing a continued interest in the arts. In the 1980s, Tony returned to the character of Wally in the new Leave It to Beaver, which ran from 1983 to 1989, and introduced him to new generations of viewers. His final noted acting job was in the 23 film Dickie Roberts' former child star. In recent years, he stayed connected to fans of classic television, making appearances to promote Leave It to Beaver on Met TV. Behind the scenes, Tony also directed episodes for notable shows like Babylon 5, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Coach, expanding his career beyond acting. In May 2022, Tony revealed he had been diagnosed with cancer for a second time, though he chose not to share details about the specific type, just a month after celebrating his 77th birthday on April 13, 2022.
I don't think so, Larry. What's the matter? Don't you like to do stuff that
Interestingly, Jerry Mathers, who played Theodore Beaver Cleaver on Leave It to Beaver, was barely 10 years old when he took on the role that would make him a household name. Growing up in the public eye, Mathers' early start in show business began much sooner. He started modeling at only 2 years old for a department store. Not long after, he was featured in a commercial for pet milk with the famous Ed Wynn, making his mark alongside vaudeville royalty. Before ever stepping onto the Cleaver set, Mathers appeared in films like This Is My Love in 1954 and The Seven Little Foys in 1955, showing early promise as a young actor. Throughout all 234 episodes of Leave It to Beaver, Mathers portrayed the typical American boy, instantly connecting with families across the country. As the beloved sitcom neared its finale, Mathers pivoted slightly, recording 2 musical singles, Don't You Cry and Wind Up Toy, adding another dimension to his list of talents. After his time as Beaver ended, Mathers decided to serve his country by joining the United States Army Air Force Reserve. Civilian life saw him in different roles. He worked as a loan officer and later as a disc jockey at Kezi Radio in Anaheim, California. The nostalgia for Leave It to Beaver remains strong, leading Mathers to reprise his iconic role in 1983's Still the Beaver, and the follow-up series, The New Leave It to Beaver, where he returned to TV for several years until 1989. As opportunities continued, he guest starred in shows like Diagnosis Murder, Married with Children, and Vengeance Unlimited, keeping his name in the public eye. In 2007, Mathers moved onto the stage, playing Wilbur in the Broadway production of Hairspray, marking his first appearance in a major stage musical. More recently, in 2018 and 2019, Mathers returned to his roots, promoting Leave It to Beaver on MayTV for a new generation of viewers. Now aged 74, Jerry Mathers enjoys these years with his third wife, Teresa Madnick, living in Santa Clarita, California, with a career that stretches from childhood modeling jobs to Broadway, and everything in between.
Lessons like that.
Yes, well, I'm afraid it didn't work this time, Fred. Well, he's trying to blackmail the Beaver into getting him in...
Leave It to Beaver, the iconic television series of the late 1950s, stands as a vivid reflection of its era, while retaining a lasting appeal for audiences who encounter it today. Many viewers regard it as a definitive portrayal of American family life in the post-war years, capturing the ideals, domestic routines, and social norms of its time, with a clarity and straightforwardness that viewers found instantly recognizable. The show's presentation, featuring a mother consistently coiffed and dressed to maintain an impeccable appearance even during household chores, a father balancing stern authority with genuine affection, and two sons navigating the pitfalls of childhood and adolescence, brings to life the aspirations and expectations that colored the American suburban dream. For some, this characteristic period authenticity forms part of the show's enduring charm. The formulaic family structure and wholesome storylines may seem quaint or even simplistic by modern standards, but for many who grew up with the series, its gentle humor and relatable predicaments evoke a sense of nostalgia. Recollections of gathering to watch weekly episodes or engaging in spirited discussions on the school playground paint a picture of Leave It to Beaver as more than just entertainment. It was a shared cultural touchstone, a conversation starter binding together a generation. Yet, the show's avoidance of controversy and steadfast adherence to the period's social values mean it can feel limited or one-dimensional, especially to contemporary eyes. Its deliberate focus on non-contentious narratives and its resistance to depict the social upheavals or complexities bubbling beneath the surface of the era have led some viewers to see it as an incomplete snapshot of its time. Still, this very quality is part of what has made the series memorable to so many. The show's commitment to lighthearted mischief, the balance of lessons learned with comic relief, and the dynamic between Wally and Beaver, playful, sometimes exasperating, always honest, form a style that resonates across generations, offering a gentle reprieve from harsher realities. Characters like Eddie Haskell, the forever scheming friend, contributed immensely to the show's texture and long-lasting appeal. Eddie's penchant for duplicity and charm added depth and comic unpredictability, making him a standout in the canon of early television and etching him into popular memory as an archetype of sly adolescence. Comparisons to earlier entertainments, such as the Our Gang comedies, help place Leave It to Beaver in a wider tradition of American humor, updating the template of youthful misadventure for a new time and a different set of cultural rules. The series managed to capture the universal themes of childhood misunderstanding, sibling rivalry, and the gradual acquisition of wisdom, all wrapped in the conventions of the period. Even decades after its original broadcast, Leave It to Beaver commands a strong emotional pull for its original audience, many of whom have revisited the series on modern media with as much delight as ever, while also offering contemporary viewers an opportunity to glimpse an American mythos in diorama form. Whether seen as a cherished time capsule or an overly sanitized ideal, the series achieves an enduring balance between comedy and culture, earning its place as a classic in the television landscape.
You can't be a people doctor without operating on frogs first. That's how they find...
Just as the doors close on another day in Mayfield, our story doesn't end with the final credits. Tonight, we step beyond the familiar white picket fences and into the real lives of the actors who brought these classic characters to life. What happened when the cameras stopped rolling and the world moved on? In this exclusive bonus segment, discover the surprising paths the cast followed, from sudden fame to unexpected careers, personal challenges, reunions, and even returns to the spotlight. You might think you know Beaver, Wally, Ward, and June, but the real stories behind their on-screen adventures hold twists even the series never showed. Stay with us as we unravel hidden chapters, reveal untold stories, and catch up on how Leave It to Beaver stars lived changed and came full circle after the final scene. There's much more than nostalgia waiting, and the truth behind their journeys might just surprise you.
It's the most they've ever earned. Hope they don't spend it at the carnival.
Oh, I think they'll get home with more.
Stephen Talbot played Gilbert Bates, the wily friend who often led Beaver into trouble. Unlike most child actors lost to history, Talbot transformed beyond his TV persona. After leaving the show, he struggled privately with the loss of fame and a painful rift with his father, famed journalist Lyle Talbot. Deep in his 20s, Talbot was briefly tied to protests during the late 1960s, landing him on an FBI watch list for suspected radical ties. He later joined the PBS News show, Frontline, where his work on controversial political documentaries drew both acclaim and threats. Amidst this, Talbot's marriage dissolved after tabloid rumors in the 1980s linked him to a high-profile Hollywood producer. Allegations he denied, but never managed to fully escape. Haunted by the pressures of his early fame and a streak of misfortune, Talbot once disappeared from public life for almost 2 years, fueling speculation of a breakdown. He resurfaced quietly, dedicated to producing investigative documentaries. Little is heard from him today, aside from a rare statement in 2022 about preserving media truth in a digital age.
All of the other brave men have been here on Wake Island for 2 weeks.
Molly, I thought we were going to make it.
John Hart took on the minor but memorable role of a construction worker in an early episode of Leave It to Beaver in 1957. While this was just a fleeting appearance, Hart was already known for his rugged presence, having replaced Clayton Moore as the Lone Ranger for one season, a controversial move that shadowed his career. After Beaver, Hart struggled to regain leading man status, often landing only uncredited bit parts and guest spots in B-movies and television. The dark turn came in the late 1960s, when he was cited in a tabloid scandal that involved gambling debts and rumors about connections with figures in Los Angeles underground poker circles, casting a long shadow over his wholesome television image. Personally, Hart faced a lonely stretch after his wife's passing in 1981. He withdrew from public life, vanishing mostly from the media except for brief interviews with Wild West magazines. His later years were marked by health troubles and a deep nostalgia for the Hollywood that had cast him aside, described by close friends as restless and haunted. The last confirmed details of Hart's life were his reclusion in Southern California, seldom seen outside local charity events where his smile never quite reached his eyes.
Well, maybe that's why you're such a miserable creep.
Yeah, maybe that's why you're such a miserable creep.
Edgar Buchanan brought Captain Jack to life in the first season of Leave It to Beaver, haunting the screen with his gruff but magnetic presence. Though only appearing in the pilot, where he sold a titular alligator, Buchanan's brief role captivated audiences with a subtle edge, hinting at past regrets buried beneath a sly grin. Afterward, Buchanan's career twisted through the shadows of Hollywood. He was never just the beloved Uncle Joe from Petticoat Junction. His personal life darted with controversy, particularly in the 50s. In 1958, tabloids whispered about his gambling debts and hinted at a drunk driving incident muffled by studio fixers, details only leaked in confidential papers years later. The 60s brought health issues. A near-fatal heart incident left him shaken but defiant, refusing offers to retire from acting. The weight of public adoration mixed with late-life alienation. Reports suggest strained family bonds and increasing reclusiveness in his final years. Buchanan died in 1979 in Palm Desert, alone in a darkened room, a single letter on his nightstand left unanswered. No one has claimed to know its contents.
Well, Andy had a little trouble with the ladder.
Hugh Beaumont's face became the nation's idea of paternal calm and quiet strength when he played Ward Cleaver on Leave It to Beaver. In 1957, behind his steady gaze was a man marked by personal battles and hidden stories. Beaumont's convincing, almost too perfect father figure masked a restless past before acting. He was an ordained Methodist minister, struggling with faith and career uncertainty. Filming the series brought tragedy. A 1959 car crash killed his mother, tearing a rift in his family and plunging Beaumont into depression. The public never saw this grief. He hid it behind Ward's patient smile, though crew and friends noticed him grow distant, even morose. After the series, Beaumont found steady acting work hard to come by, typecast and quietly resentful. He withdrew from Hollywood, buying a Christmas tree farm in Minnesota, where he battled insomnia and regrets about a stalled career. He rarely spoke of his faith, yet continued to write sermons, sending letters to family filled with disillusionment over fame. In his final years, he lived away from Hollywood, rarely making public appearances, until he died of a heart attack in Germany in 1982 during a visit to his son. The last known photographs show him weathered and introspective, his story mostly untold. His persona split forever between the perfect TV father and the troubled hidden man he truly was.
June! Hey.
Jerry Mathers stepped into American living rooms in 1957 as the innocent face of Theodore Beaver Cleaver, a role that would define him for decades. He was just 8 years old, a child thrust early into fame and expectations, watched intently by millions. The cheerful surface of the show hid a world that Mathers would eventually find draining. After the series ended in 1963, the label of Beaver clung to him. Work dried up, and the public never seemed to forget or forgive the youthful image. Mathers faced years of stalled career hopes, leading him to leave acting and join the Air National Guard at the height of the Vietnam War. Rumors of his death in service crept into the tabloids, spreading a dark myth he later had to dispel himself. Mathers openly struggled with typecasting, financial difficulties, and bouts of depression as he attempted to find himself beyond the shadow of his child star character. He turned to banking and real estate, then made an uneasy peace with his legacy by doing reunion specials. In later years, he revealed fighting against diabetes, using his celebrity to raise awareness, but also exposing the fragility behind his iconic smile. Last seen, Jerry Mathers lives in California, married, and occasionally appears in tribute events, carrying the weight and strange immortality of a TV legend who never quite escaped the shadowed corners of fame.
The world.
Boy, you're not only scared, you're sloppy.
Tony Dow's face became the symbol of the older brother, Wally Cleaver, on Leave It to Beaver in 1957. On screen, his good-natured approach and quiet confidence hid anything but trouble. Yet behind the camera, Tony was fighting his own battles. After the show ended, Dow was caught in the shadow of Wally, haunted by typecasting. He struggled to get serious roles, his fame becoming an invisible cage. Dow tried directing, joining the crew of shows like Babylon 5 and Harry and the Hendersons. The industry, though, wasn't always kind. His creative efforts received little attention, feeding a gnawing feeling of being forgotten. As years passed, Tony spoke of his crushing depression, the kind that stalks dreams and bleeds them dry. Reports of his financial troubles added fuel to persistent rumors. He turned to sculpture, finding solace and survival in twisting metal and wood, showing pieces at galleries across the U.S. There was no splashy scandal, but a quiet war inside, loss, self-doubt, and relentless searching. In 2022, conflicting news swirled about his death, as reports mistakenly claimed he had passed while he was still alive, a haunting, unsettling confusion that added to his legend of mystery. Dow died later that year from complications of liver cancer. The silence that followed left fans wrestling with the puzzle of his life, unsure where the boy next door ended and the troubled artist began.
Come on, Eddie. You better head for the hills, Sir Lancelot, before her father gallops over here and wipes that dopey look off your...
Ken Osmond became famous playing Eddie Haskell, the sly, silver-tongued neighbor in Leave It to Beaver, a character so cunning and two-faced that his very name would linger long after the show ended. The role marked him, both in the industry and in public memory, making it almost impossible for him to find work outside the shadow of Eddie. Offers trickled in over the next decade, but in Hollywood, Osmond was always Eddie, never himself. Frustrated, he retreated from acting in the late 60s, vanishing from the spotlight. Osmond made a startling pivot, joining the Los Angeles Police Department. Even with a badge, notoriety followed him. Whispers of Eddie Haskell haunted the precinct halls. In 1980, during a routine traffic stop, he was shot 3 times by a suspected car thief. Miraculously, he survived, thanks to a bulletproof vest and a metal belt buckle that caught a round headed for his spine. Later, dark rumors circulated, alleging he worked as a porn actor under the name John Holmes, an accusation he fiercely denied and disproved, taking a lie detector test to put the story to rest. His home life, too, bore scars. Fed up with the constant association with Haskell and the trauma from the shooting, he struggled with PTSD. Still, Osmond returned to acting for reunions and spin-offs, but mostly lived quietly until health issues overtook him. In his final years, he rarely appeared in public. The last confirmed reports describe him surrounded by family, still wrestling with a strange legacy a single role had given him. Gossip never died, But the man behind Eddie Haskell faded into mystery, a life shaped and almost destroyed by a character he never truly escaped.
Daytime?
Yeah, Wally takes a lot of showers in the daytime.
What for?
I don't know.
Veronica Cartwright's role as Violet Rutherford in Leave It to Beaver was brief, but unforgettable. Her haunting delivery, especially as the sly antagonist who humiliated Beaver Cleaver with the infamous smooch, left a lasting mark, showcasing her knack for unsettling innocence with a hint of malice. After her early brush with fame, Cartwright's career often followed a darker path. She shifted from child roles to notable performances in genre-defining works like The Birds and Alien, where her nervous vulnerability added real tension. With a career shaped by horror and science fiction, she became typecast, battling industry pressures and enduring the trauma of repeated shock scenes. Cartwright's personal life sometimes mirrored her cinematic turbulence. She experienced 2 turbulent divorces, both highly public, and for years struggled quietly with anxiety and depression, eventually seeking therapy in the early 1980s. The emotional toll playing distressed women in hostile environments haunted her, and friends claimed she found it difficult to trust Hollywood's promises. In the late 2000s, she nearly lost her home in Malibu's wildfires, forcing her into relative isolation. Still, Cartwright found strength by mentoring younger actors and collecting vintage dolls, seeking comfort in abandoned things. As of 2024, she was living quietly in Los Angeles, occasionally appearing at fan conventions, but avoiding the public eye. Her legacy is tinged with both acclaim and shadows, a testament to a life lived in the margins of the spotlight.
Where's Herb taking Janet?
Out to get some air.
Madge Blake brought quiet warmth and quirky charm to Mistress Margaret Mondello, the sometimes faltering, anxious mother of Larry on Leave It to Beaver. Beneath her gentle exterior, Blake's performance hid the real turmoil that marked her life away from the cameras. She entered Hollywood far later than most, after dreams stalled by her controlling father, who didn't permit a stage career until she was almost 50. A performer with genuine comedic timing, Blake soon became a familiar face across the screen, but always outside the spotlight, typecast as the kindly mother, the nosy neighbor, the gentle bystander. Behind these roles, her private life was more troubled. She faced ill health, with periods of exhaustion that forced her off sets for stretches of time. Worse, in the late 1950s, industry insiders shunned her, wary of rumors that linked her to blacklist investigations, though her name never appeared on official lists. The shifting nature of television in the 1960s, and her declining health, meant choice roles slowly disappeared. After Leave It to Beaver, Blake appeared most notably as Aunt Harriet on Batman, but even there, behind-the-scenes whispers suggested she was pushed out by a studio eager for a younger cast. She retreated from public life after Batman, rarely giving interviews. Her last years were lonely, haunted by lost opportunities and bouts of memory loss. The most striking detail of her Hollywood funeral was nearly unattended, a stark contrast to the bright lights she once graced. No new information or revelations have surfaced since her passing.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dad.
Marjorie Reynolds gave a chilly, observant quality to Mistress Murdoch on Leave It to Beaver, capturing a certain wariness behind her perfectly proper lines. Unlike many regulars, her character hovered at the edge of things, more a neighbor with secrets than a friend in the light. After her TV work, Reynolds faded from center stage, a shadow in Hollywood's golden age. She was once celebrated for her roles in Holiday Inn and Ministry of Fear, but by the 70s, she was far from the limelight. Off-camera, Reynolds' life spun with friction. A messy divorce in 1952 grabbed headlines, dragging details of infidelity and money into small-town news. The years after her career cooled were even rougher, with stories of financial trouble and a second marriage tied to rumors of controlling behavior. Despite attempts at comebacks, like guest TV spots, Hollywood closed its doors. Her last public appearance was in the early 1980s. After that, she vanished into a California suburb, where only obituaries confirmed her passing in 1997. Her final days spent away from cameras, with neighbors who remembered little except her silence.
Yeah, he knew. Well, what'd he say?
Frank Wilcox made a lasting impression as the stern district court judge on Leave It to Beaver in 1957, steering courtroom scenes with a cold, measured authority that viewers would remember. What few saw was the man behind the robe, caught in the undertow of Hollywood's darker side. After the show, Wilcox's career wound through a string of fleeting television roles, but the spotlight faded fast. Away from cameras, he battled alcoholism, a struggle that followed him through the 60s and led to two public incidents, one in Palm Springs in 1963, where he was arrested after a late-night bar fight, and another in 1972, when he vanished, briefly stirring rumors of a nervous breakdown. Wilcox faced mounting debts after several failed investments, losing most of his fortune. His marriage fell apart, and, isolated from former friends, he became known as a shadowy figure in industry circles. There are no new photographs or interviews after the late 70s. The last report placed him living quietly in Granada Hills, his phone unlisted, his days spent tending to a small garden.
Thanks for giving me the assignment, Wally. Oh, that's okay, Eddie. But what were you during algebra class today?
Richard Deacon played Fred Rutherford, a pompous office worker with a forced smile, masking resentment and bitterness beneath his polished facade. Off camera, Deacon's life was deeply marked by secrecy and loneliness. As an openly gay man only among his closest friends, he lived in quiet fear during an era where any revelation could destroy his livelihood. After Leave It to Beaver, Deacon's career stayed locked in comic support roles, never stepping fully into the stardom that eluded him. He was dogged by typecasting, unable to shake the shade of Rutherford. Offers dwindled, and frustration hardened into isolation. He rarely spoke about family, preferring strict privacy, and while a popular TV chef in the 1970s, he kept his cooking as guarded as his personal life. In 1984, he was suddenly hospitalized, and within days, he was gone, slipping away from a world that had peered at his harmless villains without ever knowing the real man. Today, few close friends survive, and with them, most secrets.
Dad, I sure hope so.
Good night, son.
Good night, Dad.
Come on, Beav.
Buddy Joe Hooker stepped into the quiet, unsettling shoes of Chester Anderson in 1957, the neighborhood enigma whose brief but vivid presence in Leave It to Beaver left a mark on those who watched. He wore the role with a nervous edge, his glances hinting at secrets and unease beneath the surface of the show's calm streets. Off-screen, Hooker lived a shadowy life. After his early fame, he attempted to shake the child star label, turning to stunt work and B-movies, but darkness soon followed. Hooker's name became linked with the 1964 Laurel Canyon fire, a rumor that haunted him though no charges stuck. Whispers of a gambling problem trailed him through the studios. In 1971, he survived a brutal car crash, which left him limping and heavily medicated. His marriage to dancer Rena Day dissolved in public scandal when private letters were leaked to tabloids. Around 1980, Hooker retreated from public life, refusing interviews and rejecting all fan mail. The last photograph, taken in a Nevada rest stop in 1983, shows him hiding from the camera, half lit and half lost. Since then, nothing. Some say he died in the desert. Others insist he lives under another name, always one step ahead of his past.
A creepy feeling.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
John Hoyt stepped into Leave It to Beaver as the clothier, a polished presence whose brief appearance left an impression of quiet authority and subtle tension. His role ended swiftly, but the shadows in Hoyt's life only deepened after the camera stopped. The man known for his refined air fought constant battles off-screen. Hoyt's career was a mosaic of character parts in science fiction and drama, but his success never sheltered him from personal storms. Rumors circled concerning a bitter divorce in the late 1960s, marked by accusations of infidelity and years of silent grudges. The scandal fractured Hoyt's reputation in Hollywood, and by the early 1970s, offers dried up. Attempts to reinvent himself on stage met with meager applause. As friends faded and debts mounted, Hoyt grew reclusive, said to spend years in a dark apartment surrounded by stacks of yellowed scripts and unanswered letters. Even as the industry moved on, whispers persisted about his abrupt temper, drinking episodes, and strange late-night phone calls that signaled deeper distress. In his final public sighting, witnesses described a frail man roaming the backlots of a closed studio, looking for lost chances.
Dad? Would you mind?
Barbara Billingsley's calm voice and perfect smile became a mask, as June Cleaver in 1957, hiding more than viewers could ever guess. Behind the spotless pearl necklaces and gentle tone, Billingsley faced a world of pressure. Typecast so strictly by her iconic role, Hollywood nearly shut its doors on her after Leave It to Beaver ended in 1963. Her marriage to Roy Calino collapsed during the show's early years, and her next husband, Roy Margin, died unexpectedly in 1981, leaving her alone after decades of partnership. Financial hardship shattered her after the series, once selling possessions to keep afloat when roles dried up. Publicly, she managed her image tightly, avoiding scandal and rarely showing pain, though she once admitted to heavy drinking in private interviews, struggling with loss and loneliness through the 70s. She made a sharp, unexpected comeback in the 1980 film Airplane, parodying her Cleaver persona with a wicked twist, and reprised June in later Beaver reunions. Her final years were marked by battles with illness and withdrawal from the public eye. Billingsley died in 2010, in a Santa Monica home, her private world as carefully guarded in her last days as it had always been.
Gee, Mom, he's gonna pick up Mr. Rutherford. I think I'll walk. Why?
Stanley Fafara became known to audiences as Hubert Whitey Whitney, the quiet, platinum blonde friend of Beaver Cleaver in Leave It to Beaver. His presence on screen was marked by a shy innocence, and he was a frequent face in the background of the Cleaver's adventures. But behind the simplicity of his role, Fafara's life took a far darker turn after the show ended. Hollywood didn't offer much after his time as a child actor. By his teenage years, Fafara drifted away from acting altogether, growing up surrounded by the temptations of Los Angeles. He slipped into drug abuse in his 20s and spent decades in and out of jail, struggling with addiction to heroin and other substances. His low points included several stints in prison and years spent homeless on the streets of Portland, Oregon. Fafara's life became tabloid news after a 1995 mugshot revealed the extent of his decline. Despite attempts at a comeback and periods of sobriety, he remained haunted by the fame that faded too soon. In his final years, Fafara battled diabetes and never fully escaped the shadow of addiction. He died in 2003 at the age of 54, alone and estranged from much of his family, leaving behind a story far removed from the innocence of Beaver's world.
When did all this happen?
George Compton.
Looking back at Leave It to Beaver reminds us not just of a simpler time on TV, but of how its young cast grew up in the public eye. Jerry Mathers, once the all-American boy, later served in the Air Force Reserve and overcame a tough fight with diabetes. Tony Dow, who played loyal big brother Wally, battled depression in adulthood and even shared his story to help others. Barbara Billingsley, forever remembered in her pearls as June, found her career stalled as she was typecast, but returned with humor and poise in films later on. Hugh Beaumont, who played Ward, balanced acting with being a Methodist minister and struggled with the sudden loss of his wife. Beyond the screen, Ken Osmond, known as Eddie Haskell, became a police officer and survived a shooting in the line of duty. Did you sit in front of the TV to watch Beaver's misadventures or remember any particular storyline that stuck with you? Share your favorite memories or family stories connected to the show in the comments below.
8 times you used to have.
Shaker Heights Swinger.